for Frank Reich. Now, if you're planning on keeping Chris Ballard, which I don't think you should if you're getting rid of Reich, then maybe an in-season firing, if things went south for this team, would make sense.
Okay.
But I don't think that Jim Irsay is going to do business like that. Even if the Colts went 2-14-1, I don't think Frank Reich would be fired in season.
So let me ask you this. Between Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and we've seen this movie before, right? We've seen this movie before with, obviously, Ryan Grigson and Chuck Pagano. I don't know if they're attached at the hip or not, to use Jim Irsay's quote. But between Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, and I understand coach is always the first to go, in your mind, which is the bigger culprit?
I think the bigger culprit is Ballard because I think
Agreed.
the core problems of the Colts are personnel
Agreed.
and roster construction related. But I think you have to hold everybody accountable for what's happened here. The Colts falling well beneath expectations in the first 4 games of the season falls on everyone. It's Jim Irsay all the way down. So I think it's too convenient. You know, we too often, Jake, want to just point the finger and say, okay, it's that guy's fault. You know, if you look at the last regime, a lot of people wanted to point to Grigson and say it's Grigson's fault. Let's keep Pagano. Remember Chuck Stay and all that? And then those people came to find out, wait a minute, Chuck Pagano can't coach either. So it's both of these guys that are, you know,
that seems a bit harsh.
I realize, look,
he got a job after here. He went to Chicago.
A wonderful guy, a wonderful man, right? Like, I always feel bad disparaging Chuck Pagano, but I knew Chuck Pagano.
Frank Reich's a good guy.
I knew Chuck Pagano couldn't coach in, like, September of 2013. Like, it was obvious to me from the get-go that he was in over his head as an in-game coach. I mean, he didn't have the right philosophy. It was really dated. But Ballard has that same dated philosophy with his roster construction because this team is built to win. I know this has kind of become like a narrative for fans and for media, but it's true. When you build in the trenches like this and you're built to run, that's what teams in 1993 used to do.
That's correct.
You don't want to do that anymore.
You remember, Derek, the Washington, now Commanders, that franchise, I mean, they were then the Redskins. In like 1993, they went out and they signed – I'm trying to think. It was Deion Sanders, and did they maybe sign Bruce Smith? And
I think they did sign Bruce Smith. Yeah,
they signed this like windfall of Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame players to Washington, and it was like, holy cow! And then actually this was probably more like 97 or 98, and then you realized they just signed the 1993 NFC Pro Bowl team, but it's 1998 now.
Yeah,
it was antiquated. And for the Colts right now in 2022, my concern for them would be this, and that is simply the fact that their best players, they have really good players, but their best players are the running back, the middle linebacker, the left guard, although he's regressed, Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, it looks like.
And I would have said their punter. That's their best player. Those 3 best players, right, are their middle linebacker, their left guard, and their running back. Now, the problem with that is that's like if you were a Little League baseball coach and your best players on the field are your left fielder, your right fielder, and your first baseman. I'm guessing you played a lot of left field or right field.
Played a lot, and third base coach was my other big position for Little League. Third base coach.
You don't play the first base coach.
No, you play third base coach. And I knew all the signals by heart. I could memorize all of them.
They don't have third base or first base coaches as kids in Little League.
We did in our Little League. When you you don't understand, Jay, because you came from a lesser Little League. Trumbull, Connecticut was the 1989 Little League World Champions. So when
you were playing it in what year?
When I played Little League in 1992, we were 3 years removed from that.
That's
World
a lifetime in Little
Championship.
League.
So it was really hard for me to make, like, we had tryouts and everything like that. Not everybody got to play
Little Leaguers look different 3 years after Little League than they did when playing in Little League.
I'm just saying, like, you don't understand because your bar was like way down here. My bar was like this for Little League when it comes to that.
You're closer to the bars.
But let's get to this because you actually this is rare. Whenever you make a good point, I want to actually focus on it because it's so rare that happens. If you extrapolate that out even beyond their best players, let's list more. Okay, so we listed Nelson, we listed Leonard, and we listed Taylor, right? Let's keep naming their best players, right? Historically speaking, Kenny Moore, slot corner. Grover Stewart.
Kenny Moore, by the way. Kenny, please give me a new contract. I want to restructure it so that I can disappear.
He's been awful.
Terrible.
Grover Stewart, interior defensive lineman.
Really good player.
DeForest Buckner, interior defensive lineman. I mean, Ryan Kelly used to be one of your best players, center, right? Interior offensive lineman. Your other Pro Bowler last year was the long snapper.
Right.
It's nice to have that. It's nice to have guys that are good at those positions, but what wins in the league this year? Dynamic wide receiver, edge, quarterback, goes without saying. Top-end cornerback. Like, those are left tackle. Those are the positions that really matter.
I'm going to use the analogy I've said all along. Having your three best players be Shaquille Leonard, Jonathan Taylor, and Quentin Nelson, and they're all very good players. But for that to be your three best players is today building an NBA team where your three best players are Steven Adams, Derek Favors,
DeAndre Jordan,
and DeAndre Jordan. Three antiquated positions, right? Dale Davis was an awesome NBA player.
Yeah.
He was an unbelievable NBA player. Dale Davis today, in 2022, Dale Davis is the exact same player coming out of Clemson, is not drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
He's not.
No, you're right. But
his kid is more athletic than he, and his kid ain't going to get drafted in the first round.
I could almost forgive it, though, Jake. Like, the Colts would be – a lot of people are saying, well, why were they winning? These guys have been their best players for a couple of years. Remember, they were 9-6 until the collapse last year. They were 11-5, and they made the playoffs 2 years ago. It's because those guys were all playing at a really high level. So it's okay to have that roster construction if all of those guys fulfill their end of the bargain. But this kind of goes back to the original point about who's more to blame. Ballard rewarded and the Colts rewarded all of these guys. So you can pay a guard $20 million, but that guard better be elite.
Right.
And he better be elite all the time. He better not be getting his lunch eaten by Danico Autry. No offense to Danico Autry,
who
but
you let walk,
by
the way, because you didn't want to pay him,
like,
right?
you got to be able to block those guys in this league if you're going to get paid $20 million to
Why
play
do people
that spot.
say this league? What other league would we be talking
Well,
about?
I try not to say.
I hear that a lot. You say that a lot. In the NBA, people say that. I think this guy can play in this league. What the hell other league are we talking about?
My pet peeve, if
Like
it's
the
this
G
league for
League?
you, my pet peeve is National Football League. I can't stand it when people say in the National Football League, and they say it like over and over again.
Why?
It drives me nuts. I don't
What
know
about
why.
if they say
I
AFC
can't
Conference? It's the American Football Conference.
Yeah,
Why are we saying conference twice?
But who would say American Football
Same
Conference,
people
right?
that say an ATM machine, I guess. The M is machine. Why would you say it twice?
You think
people
people
do
just assume that the F in AFC stands for football? You think that most people would be able to?
Well, except for
I don't
potty
think
mouth over here. Yeah,
I've ever
I think most
heard it
people
called
do.
American Football Conference.
Well, what else could it stand for?
But let's talk about Reich as well, Jake, because I don't want to play the blame game. I don't want to be like the hot take radio
What are you talking
guys.
about? You don't want to play the blame
no,
game. That's what we do.
I think it's important to not just pick one thing and focus on that because that's lazy. There are a lot of things that are foundationally wrong with where the Colts are, and it's not just Ballard, it's not just Reich. And I've been a Frank Reich apologist from day one, but continuing to have these uninspired starts and these performances where they look unprepared. It's so weird to me, Jake, because they were a great first drive team under Reich really until this year. Like, they'd get the ball and they'd march right down the field, and a lot of times they'd score almost every week. I would love to know, I guess I should have looked this up before the show, how many opening drives the Colts were successfully scoring on in 2020 and 21.
Maybe that's in the show notes you didn't prepare.
It feels like I have it right here. It's in a Google Doc. I tried to share it to your Hotmail account, so check your mailbox.
A Google Doc?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't know what any of this is.
Here's the thing. That thing relies on the Face ID thing.
No, it doesn't.
No,
it
does.
Just log in.
Well, no. And then I've gained the weight, and it doesn't recognize my face.
Your face is too fat for facial recognition? Yeah. Is it really? Wow.
It's the heart meds.
You're down bad right now.
Yeah, I know.
I knew you were down bad, but I didn't know it was that bad. Reich has to be held accountable for it, too.
I'm 50. I just let it all go.
The
I'm
play
like, you know
calling.
What? I made it.
Yeah.
To hell with it.
Yeah.
I'm half century, baby. Like, let's go. You know
the
what
play
I mean?
calling and everything else.
I had a moon pie the other day.
A lot of the things that people have a problem with when it comes to Reich, I've defended and not had a problem with. But it's a results business, and the results aren't there, and it's year 5, and you've got to win. You can't just have the 9th best offensive DVOA.
Right.
You can't win like that. You
DVOA?
need results. Well, DVOA, I like advanced stats and all of that. It's nice. It's nice that his offenses normally, not this year, have improved, but you can't stake your claim to that. You have to have on-field results and wins and losses.
I think Frank Reich is a wonderful guy. And I think he has a lot of, characteristics that you would love to see. They've had 15 opening drive touchdowns since 2020. That's the most in the NFL. They have gone DOA, drop the V, on opening drives since, this year. But the thing that I would say is I think Reich is a wonderful guy, and I think that there are assets about him that are very good for a football team. Clearly in Philadelphia, he was very good. But last year when he was doing those things, how much of that was Nick Sirianni? How much of that was the fact that he had a better offensive line and he made the change for offensive line coach? There are factors that go into that.
But the reason
if they go out tonight, though, Derek, what I was going to say is if they go out tonight and they're flat, and I don't think that's going to happen, and we'll get more into what we anticipate tonight coming up here in the second hour. I don't anticipate that they're going to come out flat. But if they do, coming off of what we saw against Tennessee, which was very egregious, you've got a home divisional game, your third divisional game, still looking for your first divisional win at home. Your owner has been on Twitter all week telling people to get primal and to get PO'd and get loud, and you go out and you lay down completely flat, and you get down 20-3 to the Houston Texans, who are awful to start the season, and you get blanked 24-0 by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you get down 24-3 to the Tennessee Titans, all within the division. Inexcusably bad deficits you're putting yourself in with in-divisional play. That creates a heat and a microscope and a scrutiny of what your team is doing that falls on the head coach. If this team tonight, the Indianapolis Colts, go out in Denver and they come out flat in this game and they get blown off the field, then that means that he has absolutely lost the locker room, and there are 52 guys, 53 guys, 60 if you count whatever, the practice squad with the COVID players, whatever, that absolutely he has lost, that don't respect him enough to go out and play like professional football players, and based on that, there's no coming back from it, period.
So
and I like the guy.
You sound like you're in favor of an in-season change then.
I'm not saying Jim Irsay, I think, would be hesitant to do it because Jim Irsay has made very concerted efforts to not be his father. And Bob Irsay would have already fired somebody 7 times right now. It would have been Billy Martin, George Steinbrenner all over again. I understand the necessity. They do have John Fox. They have guys there. If nothing else, if you're Jim Irsay, what you're saying is, look, I made a mistake in scapegoating the guy last year that we scapegoated, because clearly that's not the problem, although he's not doing much in Washington either. And if you go out and you get rid of Frank Reich, then what you are saying is you are sending the message that, look, there is accountability and it starts now. Not at the end of the year, it starts now. Do I think they should do it right away? I'm not saying that they should, but there would be evidence there that a change needs to come and that he's lost the locker room. And if they come out flat tonight, I don't see how you then anticipate that at some point. It's like me in high school algebra when I told my dad, like, Dad, comes midterms, I'm going to flip the switch. My dad said, Jake, it ain't going to happen. And he was right. Here I am, I'm 50, and I'm still taking it, right?
See, I think if you want to make an analogy to school, this is kind of like when I was at IU and my parents cut me off as far as the spending was concerned. So I told my dad, I don't know if I can make rent. And that was that same year, I think, of the Tampa Bay comeback. And he said, well, you got to figure it out. So I ended up getting a job at Outback because that was my way of figuring it out. And to me, that's kind of where the Colts
you met your wife, right?
That's where the Colts are right now, where they are in figure-it-out mode.
I'll bet she was thrilled with that turn of events.
I don't think any in-season deal – I don't think Ashley had any idea how high my star would rise at the time. This is why we've stayed connected as long as we've had.
I'm sure she did.
I know that she's not in it for this, for the fame and for the podcast and all of that. I just think that that's where they are right now. Like an in-season change for Reich, to me, it does nothing. If anything, it shows that you're holding one person accountable in Reich and you're not holding the other one accountable in Ballard, when really those two, to me, should be tied in together for the fates of this team. And the players have to wear some of this too. The players have to, this whole lost the locker room and stuff like that. These are grown men. These are professionals. It shouldn't be losing the locker room. You should play hard no matter what. No matter what's going on, no matter what tumult is happening on or off the field, you should be able to perform at a high level, and they're not doing that.
You got to try the Malnati Chicago Classic here.
Yeah, this is great. You see the sausage on here? Can we get Alan just to zoom in?
Lean sausage,
just a little
extra
bit? Cheese,
vine-ripe tomato sauce.
Yeah. We're going to go in a little bit on
the tomato sauce?
This slice here. Delicious.
Oh, it's beyond delicious. You kidding me?
Oh,
What do I tell you about
got
the
beard
tomatoes?
in there too.
What do
You got a close up of the beard there.
What do I tell you about the tomatoes? I mean, unbelievable.
Fine, ripe, and delicious. Very, very good. We got plenty more here to get to from Lou Malnati. We're already an hour into this thing. Can you believe it? We're going to go around week 5 of the NFL, so we'll look at some other games, not including tonight.
Derek, it feels 1 hour for you with me feels like 3 for me to you.
Okay, well, it's the opposite. I'm eating pie and hanging with my best friend on this beautiful patio.
It's
like
Fahrenheit
this
time
is a
for you. It's
perfect day.
Celsius for me.
Perfect
Actually,
weather.
the other way around.
Perfect pizza. Perfect best
Perfect
buds
night.
here. Corey and Schultz live from Lou Malnati's. We'll talk more NFL next here on the ISC Sports Network.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds left. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. Oh! That's the finish. You get a layup taken. And an and one. Shot at the buzzer. Got it! She got it! Oh my goodness, what a shot! Hello! Did it again. Hello! Made the highlight reel again. That goes to Mentor and all kinds of room to run. Down the middle of the field, and he will not be touched. Jackson, hello! There we go.
Stokes throws it, caught, ball ricochets.
Wow.
A huge hit.
Wow.
This has been an amazing display of goal scoring.
Has it, leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County. Unbelievable!
Touchdown.
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to Malnati's and Broad Ripple special edition before Thursday Night Football with Corey
Taking
and
one more
Schultz
piece, Derek.
here on the ISC Sports
get mad at
Network
me.
alongside Jake Query. I'm the much slimmer Derek Schultz. Thanks so much for joining us here on the ISC Sports
Listen,
Network.
mini marathon by May, I'll be 195.
Oh, don't do that. Don't do this thing where you only eat boiled chicken for like 3 months.
No, I'll eat
You
Lou
become
Malnati's.
really difficult to be around when you're just hangry all the time. You're difficult to be around as it is, but especially when you're like that, it's rough. We've got the delicious pies here that they keep churning out there in the Lou Malnati's kitchen in Broad Ripple. This is the only dining location in central Indiana of 4 locations. So pickup and delivery available, carry out and delivery. West 86th Street, so across the street from Brebeuf High School, that strip in there where the Trader Joe's, I think, is in there as well. Up in Carmel, down on the south side in Greenwood, and then a 4th takeout delivery location in Avon. So West Siders, good news for you guys. You're about to have a
Do
Lou's
they
in your
still? Does
neighborhood.
Avon still make like makeup?
Like women's make?
Yeah.
Avon?
Yes.
The only one that I know is
Mary Kay.
maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Like that's the only one that I know
Okay,
of
no.
that.
Avon is like you have like a local rep that you get your stuff through, and then they have the Avon Skin So Soft, which is a lotion, but it actually the Avon Skin So Soft works as an insect repellent.
Okay.
So if you put on Avon Skin So Soft before you go camping, people don't know that. 2 ways to avoid mosquitoes if you camp, Derek. Avon Skin So Soft works perfectly. The other one is take a shot of vinegar.
Like drink it?
Yes.
Really?
No, like
Because your
like
sweat,
with an IV.
your
Yes,
sweat
drink it.
becomes yeah. Well, I didn't know. I mean, it depended on how rugged you were going with the camping here.
Do you camp?
No. I don't like going with more than 12 hours without showering.
At all?
So I'm not a camping person. Neither is my wife. I understand why it's popular. I know people like to get outside and all of that. I'm not.
Somebody just sent me today a whole box of soap,
Yeah.
handmade or homemade soaps. I'm looking at the name of it because I appreciated
Okay.
them
Can
sending
we
it to me.
get back to the football talk? I'm getting like creeped out by some of this.
What do you
stuff,
mean?
like soaps and
What do you mean?
makeup and whatever else.
Justin's Suds.
Let's look around the rest of the NFL.
They smell great.
The Week 5 schedule. There aren't a lot of games here that really impact the Colts. In fact, a lot of the games that are the prominent games are NFC games. You've got another London game.
There are a couple that affect the Colts.
The Giants and Packers in London. The Giants probably are frauds at 3-1. They've beaten 3 bad teams, but still they're 3-1.
What's the Packers' record?
3-1. No one's talking about Green Bay.
It's because Aaron Rodgers is not putting up typical Aaron Rodgers numbers, right?
But that's going to happen. Cowboys and Rams, that could be an interesting one. Cooper Rush going on the road, taking on L.A. and the Rams. Eagles are 4-0, and they look great. They're in Arizona to take on the Cardinals. They haven't played the best opening schedule. AFC-wise, Bengals and Ravens. Who are these teams? They're both 2-2.
I think the Ravens are pretty good, I think. Bengals, you do wonder, was last year an anomaly, or are they here to stay?
Yes. Last year, making the Super Bowl was an anomaly.
Maybe.
But I think they're here to stay in the fact that they're going to continue to contend in the AFC North.
Say the team again. Cincinnati.
Bengals.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's the Bengals.
Well, the Bengals is the band.
Again, we got to keep
Monday.
the references 21st century.
Well, I'm not the one that brought them up. You did.
No one knows what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about
this
the Cincinnati
year's
Bengals. You mentioned the Bengals.
No, you're talking about like Ken Anderson and like those teams.
No.
Like,
That's the Bengals.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Bengals. The Bengals is the band. Manic Monday, Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah.
That's the Bengals. That's who you keep talking about.
Rock Lobster. Like I know who the Bengals are.
No. That's
So,
the B-52s.
yeah, I know.
Rock Lobster is B-52s.
I know they
Also a bar around the corner, but B-52s. We're right around the corner from Rock Lobster, by the way. 6302 Ferguson in Broderpool. Lou Malnati's is where you will find us right now. We're going to be here until 8 o'clock. Love to have you come down. I'll tell you what, Derek. Somebody comes down right now, says, you know what, I was just watching. I saw it. Pie and a beer. I'll buy them right now. A pie and a beer.
Yeah. And thanks to the people that did come already, because we've got some of our former, like our KSR crew.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the listeners that are here from the old radio show. Our buddy Rob Nagel and his son Porter.
Is Rob wearing a Buffalo sweatshirt?
He's
always wearing a Buffalo sweatshirt.
He's usually wearing UB stuff.
Yeah.
We've got the Lakins and Josh and Liz. It's just cool. It's cool to see some of these old
represent
faces.
people coming all the way from Iowa.
And everybody that are back here still supporting the show.
Go Hawks.
The second iteration, I guess, of the show.
Iteration?
Is that what it is? Iteration?
Installment?
An iteration? It's something like that. It's a. I was trying to sound smart.
All I know is we
now
both leaned in incredulously, and it was awkward.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, the rest of the schedule.
Well, these are the 5 games that I kind of had outlined because it's not a great NFL slate overall in Week 5, but these were the 5 games that kind of stuck out to me as I think Cincinnati-Baltimore is Sunday Night Football.
It's definitely a primetime game.
Okay, I'll have to look again, but I think
that's a good matchup.
I think it's Sunday Night Football is Cincinnati and Baltimore. Sometimes they don't do division games unless they're NFC East games, though, I feel like, in primetime, which is
Tell me about it.
Well, what's annoying now is that the Cowboys and Eagles are good again. So now, you're going to start to, like, the Eagles will have 8 primetime games next year, and the Cowboys are the Cowboys, so they're always going to have those games. What I'm interested to see, Jake, is you look at this coming schedule for the Colts here. If they won the next 3 games, they would actually be in first place in the AFC South. Like, that's how bad the division is. So even after all of this in this start, if they won their next 3 games.
So the next 3 for the Colts are obviously tonight in Denver, then Jacksonville here.
Yes.
And at Tennessee, right?
They'd be in first place.
Yeah, although we don't know that definitively, right? What if Jacksonville wins out?
They would guaranteed to be in first place.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the tie plays a factor into that, so they would have one more win or one less loss.
Yeah, I guess you're right,
because
Jacksonville has 2 losses now, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of where things are. Like, this is still salvageable this year. And I feel like, Jake, all the time, like in September, early October, we have to attach qualifiers and everything, right? Because, long season, and I'm not saying that it's over, but it feels over. Like, it feels over. Could the Colts turn around?
You're right.
Yes,
Derek,
they could, but there's not a lot of reason to think that they will.
You got to look at last year. I keep going back to this. There was a point last year where the Colts were being talked about frequently and beyond Indianapolis. I can tell you that, you have obviously had Hard Knocks. That probably had something to do with it. But the Colts were being talked about nationally like in probably early November as the best team in the league.
Yeah.
People were like, this is the most dangerous team in the AFC. Nobody wants to see Indianapolis. And then they completely stubbed themselves, shot themselves in the foot, stubbed their toe, and missed the playoffs. The year I go back to, I've mentioned this 1,000 times, I realize. But I'll never forget covering the 2001 Rams. They were 6-0. And, I mean, it was historic. They were on pace for Kurt Warner to throw for 6,000 yards.
Yeah, they were destroying teams.
And they were beating teams. They weren't just beating teams, Derek. They were blowing them off the field. And they go out. They lose in week 7 to Kansas City. Now, granted, Kurt Warner got hurt, but Trent Green, who was supposed to be your starter anyway, takes over. They end up finishing 3-7. They couldn't beat anybody. They got beat by New Orleans to end the regular season, sliding them into the wild card round, and then they stay in New Orleans, get beat in the wild card, in the Saints' first ever playoff victory.
Aaron Brooks, right?
Aaron Brooks.
Yeah. Deuce
So
McAllister.
they went from Super Bowl champion 6-0, scoring a gabillion points, to getting knocked out of the playoffs by Aaron Brooks on the road. It is a long year. You mentioned 19 years ago tonight, Colts went down to Tampa. Bucks 4-0, defending Super Bowl champs. Generational defense. John Gruden. Tony Dungy revenge game on his birthday. Colts get down 35-14. Lights out, over. Bucks, give them the ring. Boom. They come back, and then you're off and running, and the Bucks never rebounded from that.
They missed the playoffs. They were
A ton
8-8.
can happen.
Yeah.
A ton can happen. But you've got to show some signs of life. And if they don't show signs of life tonight, then when's it going to happen? When are they going to flip that switch? Can they flip that switch?
I just wish you had something to point to and you could say, okay, this is why they're going to turn around. Like, if you look, this isn't new, right? The Colts have been in an early rut. They were in a rut. Like, they were 0-3 last year. They were 1-5 in 2018. But in 2018, you looked at the schedule and you're like, oh, my God, they've got Buffalo with their 8th-string quarterback, and they've got all these NFC East crap-a-rama teams. You looked at the schedule and you said, okay, look, I didn't think that the Colts were going to finish 9-1, but they ended up finishing 9-1 that year, and it made sense because all of those games that they were about to play were teams that they could beat. Last year, they were 0-3, but they were really competitive in that Rams game. They were competitive in Nashville. They were competitive until the fourth quarter against Seattle in the opener, and Wentz is playing on basically no feet, remember, because he had all the injuries.
Right.
So there was a reason to point to and things to point to say, okay, this is why things are going to turn around. When you look at this Colts team, I just don't know what you point to. The fact that their defense sometimes shows up for a half, okay. Like, people want to point to the Kansas City game. The Kansas City game was just a fluke. You have an outlier performance, and that was theirs, and in a good way. Unfortunately, they've already got that out of the way.
Here's the thing. That Kansas City game, Derek, to me, my concern's maybe the wrong word, but, is it fool's gold? Because Kansas City may well have come into that game and thought, whatever, we don't need to show a lot. And they stub their toe, they get beat, okay. But Kansas City, I think, can turn it on. So that game going into it meant a lot more to Indianapolis than it did Kansas City.
Yeah, but it's so early in the season, Jake. I don't think they really approach it that way. It's not like a Week 17 game where you're like, I don't really want to exert ourselves that much. We've already got the division.
Who are the 4
tie-up
best
and
teams
all
in the AFC right now?
I would still take the Chiefs.
Not on reputation, but in terms of how they're playing right now.
I still think the Chiefs are one of the 4 because really outside of the Colts game, I mean, you saw what happened with Mahomes and the primetime game and all of that. Really outside of the Colts game, that's still a team that is just a force to be reckoned with that I would not want to see, especially at Arrowhead. The Bills are still the Bills are the top dog, I think, in the AFC. They're still there right now. After that, it starts to get kind of interesting. Like, are we buying what the Dolphins are selling? Do you take one of the AFC North teams? Baltimore's had some leads that they've blown, and they've been in control really of their first 4 games, but they've only split. They only have a 2-2 record to show for it. You're not taking anybody out of the AFC South because you don't think any of the AFC South teams are contenders. And the AFC West has been a disappointment. The Broncos are disappointing. The Chargers have been disappointing so far. And the Raiders just were the last team to get a win. So I think the AFC is, it's only 4 games. 4 games is the first time I feel like you have a sample size to go on. But I think things are still very much kind of up for grabs.
Tougher question.
But to me, Bills and Chiefs are the cream of the crop.
4 best in the NFC.
At this point, I think the Eagles are just because their defense is probably the best in the league.
Nick Sirianni can coach, it appears, too,
right?
right?
I mean, I think so. Philly and I'm not just saying that because they're 4-0, but I think Philly you have to put there. I'd still put the Rams there. Let me think. Out of the NFC South, Tampa's kind of struggling a little bit. That's a little more difficult to do.
I mean,
I don't think you could put the Cowboys there with a backup quarterback. Can you do that with Cooper
Green
Rush?
Bay?
Yeah. I mean, the only other 3-1 team is Minnesota. Everyone in the NFC East is 2-2. And the only one that's happy to be 2-2 in the NFC East is probably Seattle because they've been starting Geno Smith.
At one point, did we think Arizona was going to be good?
I think we did. I think there was a point last year where we thought Arizona had the best record in the league through October, I think, right? Last year, weren't they 7-1 or 8-1, something like that? So I think we thought that about that then, and then they kinda went
Arizona
like
was
this.
the last team to lose.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I mean.
By the way, Derek, off the top of your head, there have been how many Super Bowls? 54?
Sure. I don't
Is that
know.
right?
Yeah.
55?
Was 50 Denver's last one with Manning?
Correct.
Yeah. So that was 2015 season. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we've had 56,
Okay.
I think.
56 Super Bowls. How many of them were won by the team that was that year the last team to lose?
Oh, I have no idea.
It's an excellent trivia question.
have
This
no
is,
idea.
folks, for those that are wondering, this is the kind of stuff. I know that I'm sitting next to Mr. Show Prep. This is the kind of stuff that's just locked. It's a vault right here. And he has access to that. Doesn't always take advantage of it. Does a lot of research on his own, Google and whatnot. But this is the kind of stuff that's just stored right in the back of the noggin. And when I need to, I can.
Yeah.
You have access to that.
I know. How about this? I know this. The Colts were the last team in 2006 to be a Super Bowl champion as the last team to first lose.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And they were the
There you go.
17th to do so.
Wow, 17 teams have done that.
Yes.
Wow. But it's kind of incredible that we've gone 15 years without that happening. But
I
again,
would
Jake,
agree.
it shows the parity that we have.
Well, this is what the league was
is
set up to be.
built, yeah,
Correct.
for this. Where and you have these matchups. I mean, a lot of times, they're doing the schedule like the opening kickoff game is usually between two contenders, for the most part. So
Right.
somebody's grabbing a
Well,
loss right there off the bat.
Usually the opening kickoff game
is the Super Bowl champion
and
right?
the conference champion
Yeah.
from the year before, or the conference runner-up
Yeah.
from the year before, right?
A lot of times it is. But at the end of the day, it's usually two contenders. So I wonder if that has something to do with it because they started, if I'm not mistaken, they started doing the Thursday night game. Colts and Saints were
Well-
the first teams to do that, right? In 07?
Maybe. Was that a third? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a Thursday
at
night because
the last
I
year of the
worked-
RCA Dome.
That was the day. So the Colts and Saints game, I was working at WIBC at the time. And that morning they come to me and they go, oh, by the way, the NFL is putting on a party on Monument Circle with Faith Hill, Hinder, Kelly Clarkson, and Mellencamp was playing at the Dome. And they said, we need you to MC it. Say what again? We need you to MC it. You and Terry Stacey are going to MC the kickoff party on Monument Circle for the NFL tonight. This is at like 7 in the morning. And I'm like, what time is this taking place? 6 tonight. Okay. So the NFL Network comes in and they're like, okay, like, we're going to get you wardrobe and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what is happening here, right? So we go out, and they didn't really have a rehearsal or anything. They just told me, they're like, listen, the front 200 people are hired by the NFL to go bonkers over everything you say. They're going to make you look like a rock. You could use people like this. They're going to make
I would
everything.
love to have that.
Everything you say, they're going to go crazy over.
Yeah.
Well, I probably told you this story. Maybe I've told it on the air. The previous year for the Brickyard, I was up in the 9th floor of the Pagoda. And during the Brickyard 400, and I'm waiting in line for the restroom on the 9th floor where the security command is for IMS, and there's two guys, and I'm talking to them, and I'm like, what do you guys do? And they're kind of sheepish. Finally, one of them's like, we work with the FBI. Oh, okay. So what do you do for the FBI? And he's like, well, we're plainclothes FBI officers. And I said, well, so big sporting events, I'm curious, how often are you guys out and about? And they kind of looked at each other, and the one guy goes, I will simply tell you that we are everywhere. You are very safe. We are everywhere. Okay. So flash forward to this party. I go out. They told me the front 200 people are brought in by the NFL. They're going bonkers over everything I say. I look down in the front row, and there's two guys completely decked out in New Orleans Saints stuff. Fleur-de-lis painted on their face, Drew Brees jerseys, yellow hair. And I'm like, why would there be Saints fans that would come all the way up for this? This is, even though the Saints were playing. And I point out to the fans, let's give a welcome to our fans from New Orleans, our Saints fans here. And I look down, and one of them looks up at me and gives me and it was the two FBI guys right there in the front row. And I'm like, holy cow, they are everywhere, right?
Wow.
But we're doing that party, if anybody remembers that party on Monument Circle, and I'm introducing Faith Hill and Hinder and Kelly Clarkson, and they come up to me, and this is all taking place on the south side of Monument Circle, going down towards Meridian Street. down Meridian Street. And they come up to me and they're like, whatever you do, pay no attention to what's taking place on the building behind you on the north end of Monument Circle and try to distract people from it. And I'm like, okay. So then naturally, what do I have to do as soon as they turn away?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. How
So
could you not? It's like, do not press this button, and you're the only one standing there. What are you going to do? Of course
so
you're gonna
there's a
press the button.
police. So there's a police standoff, okay? And the guy is on top of the building threatening to jump. And they're like, make sure nobody notices what's going on in the
Wow,
background.
this story took a turn.
Totally.
Yeah.
So he jumped. And I'm telling you, Derek, I know that this story did just take a south turn, but it messed with me. I had to go out there and, like, cheer everybody up. And I'm like, and I saw this whole thing happen. And I'm like, come to find out that the guy was a day away from having to appear in court for like 65 counts of the worst possible crime somebody can, and I'll simply leave it at that. And I'm like, okay. But it was a crazy day.
Yeah.
Crazy day. But that was the Saints and Colts. And then, of course, 2 years later, they end up facing each other in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But that was coming off celebrating the Colts Super Bowl win. And but at that time, Thursday Night Football and its advent when it was on NFL Network, I always felt like Thursday Night Football, once the NFL Network took it over, was like the participation trophy for NFL
yeah,
teams.
it was the reason that the Browns had a primetime game.
Correct.
Every
Like
year.
every team, we're going to get you all a primetime game.
Yeah.
So leading off tonight, Jets and Jaguars. Lock in, baby.
Yeah.
Who cares,
A
right?
lot of times it'd be in the same division, so it would be like the Jags and Texans would be
You're
Thursday
right.
Night Football because they killed two birds with one stone that way. And that's what it was for a long time. But now it's become, a prominent.
No,
this is
it's
actually, believe it or not, Jake, did you know this while we're doing trivia? This is the second time that the Colts and Broncos have played on Thursday Night Football.
Let me guess the other.
It's not that long ago.
It was not.
I think you were with me. If you weren't, maybe it was Chris Hagan sitting next to me at Fox 59. But I said I would rather be anywhere but watching this game right now. It's the worst game that I've ever watched live. Colts and Broncos in 2017.
Clearly, I wasn't with you.
The Colts were 4-12.
Nobody would say that given the opportunity to watch a game with me.
The Colts were 4-12 with Jacoby Brissett taking on Brock Osweiler and the 3-13, I think, Broncos. And Osweiler dunked all over them. It was rough.
Wasn't the rumor?
I feel bad for people that paid real money to see that
Wasn't
game.
the rumor always that Brock Osweiler only got that job because he was roommates with John Elway's kid at Arizona State?
Yeah, there was something involving that. He was from Arizona, wasn't he, Brock Osweiler?
I think.
I don't remember where he played it. Did he play at Arizona State?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And supposedly he was roommates with or friends with like Elway's son or nephew or something like that.
He was one of those guys like Blaine Gabbert who was like 6'5", remember? And it was
he's like
oh my
6'7".
God, he's huge. He's got like a rocket arm, and it's like,
well,
he can't play.
Brock Osweiler, there are three guys. Brock Osweiler, Gus Frerotte, Tom Brady. Those are three guys that took over in games against the Colts and made a career for themselves based on one performance. Yeah. Now, in Brady's case, he was off and running, but he was able to hold on to his starting position when he took over for Drew Bledsoe because he threw all over the Colts. Osweiler just ended up going and getting a king's ransom of money from Houston out of that deal.
He did. And then in Houston, he beat
and
the
Gus
Colts,
Frerotte ended up with a journeyman career and then hurting his neck by body slamming a goalpost.
Osweiler in either 15 or 16, him and Brandon Weeden back-to-back years, Houston, Indy in December, came here and won and ended up winning the division because of those games. That was the low point of the Pagano.
Brandon Weeden is the one that was 26, and Cleveland needed this. They were on the clock, remember?
Yeah.
And they didn't know what to do, and they panicked. They're like, Brandon Weeden.
They took him and Trent Richardson were their 2 first-round picks that year. It was brutal. We've got a native Chicagoan and a guy that we're a big fan of in Charlie Clifford of Wish 8 set to join us next.
Get him a piece, Derek.
Here from Lou Malnati and Broad Ripple as we continue hour number 2, getting you set for Colts and Broncos on Thursday Night Football here on the ISC Sports Network.
Get him served up.
Fall means football, and on the ISC, we've got you covered all season long. Catch our broadcast live on television on MyNDTV 23 and Comcast 81, as well as streaming on ISCSportsNetwork.com. With a subscription to ISC for only $4.99 a month, you get access to our entire library, viewable anytime, anywhere, on our website or on the ISC app. Don't miss a single broadcast. ISC Sports Network. Football lives here. The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back live. Lou Malnati's in Broad Ripple. It's a special edition of Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network. Alongside Jay Query, I'm Derek Schultz. Third guy in our conversation I thought would be a perfect fit for this show, not only because he definitely knows his Colts and he knows Indy sports, but he is a native of the Chicago area, and so I thought Lou Malnati's. It's a Colts game tonight, Indy, Chicago. Who melds those two things together? No one does it better than Charlie Clifford of Wish 8. It's great to see you, my man. How are you?
That's a heck of an intro.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, boys.
When did you get married? I know it's been like 2 years ago, but
It's actually
recent than
been
that.
less than that. Yeah, New Year's Eve in Cincinnati. So we're coming up on a
on
year.
purpose?
That was planned.
Okay, because
You've never done a New Year's wedding. so-
I've never done a wedding, period.
well,
but I noticed
surely you've been to a wedding.
not on New Year's Eve, which is cool. Now, I will say this. In Cincinnati, speaking of football, weddings, and Cincinnati, when I was a junior in high school, myself and Chris Farkas decided to take Michelle Nelson and Krista Akers to dinner at Barleycorns in Cincinnati. We told our parents we were like doing something else.
That's
we
a
drove them
hike.
to Cincinnati. I know, but well, I mean, we were they were seniors, we were juniors, and we went down there and we couldn't find the restaurant, so we pulled into just downtown Cincinnati, and we're like, we'll just ask directions. The first person we see, kid you not, this guy's walking out of a building. We stop him. I go, hey, can you tell me how to get to Barleycorns? The
Pete
guy
Rose.
goes, I don't know, man. I'm not from here. It was Roger Staubach. He was in for some insurance convention. Anyway, we went to the restaurant. We went into the bathroom, and there was a guy basically dry heaving in the bathroom because he was getting ready to propose to his girlfriend, and he asked if he could rehearse for us in the men's room. Well, sure. And then we went out and we watched this guy, and we had a big celebration.
A
There you go.
rehearsal in the bathroom.
For the
Hey,
engagement.
I can relate to the nerves. Years later, that was me
So
proposing.
So your wife is from Cincinnati area?
She is. She went to
Miami of Ohio with you?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're all grown up, Charlie.
I know. It's crazy. I feel like I was thinking about this driving up. The first radio interview I did 6 years ago now. You call me, AC, Anthony Calhoun, Channel 8. Hey, you got to go on with these guys. They're great. Everybody listens to them. I'm in a Whole Foods in Chicago because my now wife at the time is still living there. Hey, it's Query and Schultz. Welcome to the show. I'm trying to listen to the questions over the noise of the supermarket. I'm like, did that guy just ask me what other schools have a president and a Super Bowl winning quarterback?
One of my
And
great
went on
trivia
to,
questions.
and I'm like, I thought this was going to be easy. I sound like the biggest, idiot to ever walk into the sports market.
Well, I knew if you were on with Derek that there's no way you could be the biggest, right? So you were safe either
Derek,
way.
Thanks
you
for
know?
saying that.
I don't side with him anymore.
I can't believe this
With
has
you.
been 6 years for you.
will be
so
in
this is
January.
your fifth Colts season, then 6
si-
years.
Sixth Colts season.
Gotcha.
It will be 6 full years in January. So 6
Gotcha.
quarterbacks.
Yeah, I was going to say you've kind of
Wow,
been
that's amazing. It
through
is.
it here.
My first day here was Chris Ballard's introductory press conference.
Wow.
So that's that was day one.
So
You
you've
might
seen
last longer than he.
the genesis of all of this from day one to where we are now. And with this start, Charlie, you know that a lot of people have the torches and pitchforks out, right? Is it Ballard? Is it Reich? Who should go? Who should stay? Can they turn this around? how do you assess where this team is through 4 games and really where this regime is through much longer than that, 5 years for Frank Reich and now year 6 for Chris Ballard?
Well, it's tough because you two would agree with this. They're A-plus human beings. And I think, I think 95% of Colts fans understand that actually does matter. And when you deal with these people, it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters when it comes to winning.
This is true, and that's I was
You gotta
getting.
win.
I was
Fans
getting
wanna
to
like
that
you, though.
point. I was getting to that point. This start, the past 3 weeks in particular, feels different, and it feels like that. Despite what's on paper contractually, Jim Irsay sold his fan base this summer that not only would this go backwards to the point of being in the bottom tier of the AFC, then you know what's going to happen. I don't see it any other way.
To me, yeah, we talked about it earlier, Charlie, and I prefaced it with saying Frank Reich, nobody dislikes Frank Reich.
No.
He's a great guy. But if they don't go out tonight and play, then he's lost the team. There's no evidence to say otherwise. When was the last time they played a great game?
Christmas night in Arizona.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
6 games ago.
With
right.
half the practice squad
Right.
saving
But
the day.
for whatever reason, then the season's on the line, they went flat. They come out this year, they start out now, they've had 3 chances.
By
to
the
win.
way, we have enough food to save.
Oh, this is great.
Beautiful.
I can't
the
wait to try
entire
the wings.
town.
Kind of see
Not
it
to
on
interrupt
the
you.
corner of the
Thank
table.
you to everyone who's
buddy.
been.
they have. I mean, they've had
It's
3
just been
chances now, Derek.
all through the show here.
They've had 3 chances to win a divisional game, Charlie. They have yet to do it.
And that is.
And that to the owner, that is everything.
It is.
To the owner, the only thing, there's only one hurdle left for the owner. The owner Jim Irsay had 3 boxes that he wanted checked off immediately. Exercise the demons in Jacksonville. Massive fail. Didn't score a point.
Well, the week 1 streak. That
Yeah,
would
they want
right.
to end that. You're
Right.
right. Yeah. Didn't end that.
Then taking care of Tennessee and taking command back of the division and letting teams know that you're here to stay in the division. Failed there. The last one is if they don't beat Carson Wentz. If they don't beat Carson Wentz at home, then it will get – I can't imagine that happening. But if that happens – but I'm just telling you, I don't dispute that players like and respect Frank Reich. But they know what's at stake here. And if they go out and they're flat again, then he is in serious trouble. Now, I don't think he's going to get fired in season. I really don't. But that, to me, would indicate that he's lost him. Because what other evidence do you have? They haven't – you are now coming up on 11 months since a solid performance from them.
This is true.
Yeah, because even the Kansas City win wasn't really it was a great defensive performance,
No.
but it was a horrific performance
Fantastic.
for the offense.
And I think
Yeah.
personally, Frank Reich, if that is the case and if that were to happen, I'm not saying it will, but if that were to happen, Frank Reich is being scapegoated, quite frankly, in my opinion, for having to go out and coach a football team that is horribly constructed, not horribly, but poorly constructed, because they are trying to win 2006 football in 2022, and they don't have depth at the positions that everyone in this town, said, you got to go out and get a veteran receiver. You got to get playmakers. You got to get guys that can create in space.
Yeah.
That's what every team has. And Chris Ballard, quite frankly, was arrogant in his adamancy that they didn't have to do those things, and it's blown up in his face.
The irony of this, to me, is this was the town 20 years ago that solved that equation. Peyton Manning, as incredible of a generational talent as he was, and I know he did make countless receivers and tight ends a ton of money, but those cupboards were never dry in terms of pass catchers.
Right. Well, part of it is what you said. I think what we realized with Manning was once Manning went away, you realized how many things he masked. Now, receiver wasn't necessarily one of them because and it is interesting to me. I was thinking about this, Charlie, the other day with Bill Polian, who I understand is obviously one of the best ever to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you really think about it, Bill Polian took over the Indianapolis Colts, and he had Marvin Harrison on the roster, Marshall Faulk on the roster, Tarek Glenn on the roster, and Peyton Manning waiting in the wings as the number 1 pick. Well, that's a pretty good foundation for
gives
somebody
you a
to
They
start
had the
with.
ball rolling already.
Now,
Yeah.
no doubt about the fact that Freeney and Mathis, those were excellent draft picks by him. I mean, no question about it. And Reggie Wayne was a good pick. But that's a pretty good head start to start with, and it makes your job a lot easier. Chris Ballard, I'm not saying that he was given an easy task, but he has everybody. Derek, you and I, how many times did we talk about, probably when we were still doing a radio show, the fact that Anthony Costanzo was on the verge of retiring? Everyone knew it.
Yeah.
Everyone knew it.
It's funny you bring up his name because I've been a little curious why his name hasn't come up more this season. I thought, we've almost erased that from our minds.
Right.
And you saw it in a game last week that could have very well gone to overtime had you continued that drive and scored. And maybe then you're sitting here today saying, you know what? They galvanized. They won 2 at home. And the AFC South right where you need to be. It is funny how it can literally turn on a play. But back to your earlier point, the first 12 minutes, you're playing for your coach tonight. And if you aren't a Colt running out of the locker room knowing that in your heart, then, we need to put the Colts need to put someone else on the field because the sleepwalking, the Colts were 3rd in first quarter points last year, 3rd in points scored on opening possessions. They're 30th and 32nd through 4 weeks.
They're
and
dead
the
last
health
in
has
scoring
been
in the
better.
league,
The health has been better. It's just there's so many things, back to the earlier point, it just feels different this time around. And I know for many of you at home, you're just hoping, please don't tell me this is just the wall that, this team, many of you think mediocre, is finally hitting it.
Yeah, and we were talking, Charlie, and you were here for both of these teams, obviously last year, but also in 2018. This isn't new territory for the Colts starting slow, right? They were 1-5 in 18. They were 0-3 last year. But you saw signs in those first 6 games in 18 and the first 3 games in 21 where you said, okay, I can kind of see it. If this cleans up, if Wentz gets healthier. The 2018 team was more about just hitting the really soft portion of their schedule because then they started running roughshod over like the Bills and the Bills pre-Josh Allen and before they got really good.
And let's be honest, last year there was a piece of that too.
Well, yeah, they went to Buffalo and
that being the one exception.
Yeah, of that run. But it just felt like there were things to build on in those first couple of games, and now you kind of look at it and you say, yeah, okay, 4 quarters against Kansas City defensively, the second half against Tennessee defensively, there's nothing seemingly to build on offensively.
What do you think about this as much as tonight is primetime, Russell versus Matt, hostile environment, great franchise in Denver. You have Peyton, Shirley. How many over-under on Peyton cutaways once they figure out where he's sitting tonight? The next 2 weeks, to me, and I'm sure this isn't rocket science, I mean, if you're going to pick between tonight, and I know what the radio is going to sound like in the morning if they get beat bad tonight. But really, what you do against Jacksonville at home and what you do in Nashville, that's an easy trade-off. Excuse me if you're getting some static there. To me, I'll pass tonight if you're going to go somehow and shock the world the next 2 weeks.
Charlie, what I do think very well could go out tonight and win this game. I mean, we've seen it so many times. You mentioned the Arizona game. There are so many games just historically where there's something about going on the road, I think, and this is what I'm fascinated by. Oftentimes, I have always felt the best thing for a team with their back against the wall is going on the road, quite frankly, and just getting away from the noise. And there's something about, and I hate to be that guy like, you don't know unless you've been in a locker room. That's the biggest meathead excuse, lame, lack of preparation and intellect thing ever to say in a media. But there is something about when you play sports and you go on the road, there is a camaraderie that comes with that, of just you kind of feel like it's you guys against everybody. And that sometimes it ties up the loose ends. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see them go out tonight and play their best game so far of the year. Now, that's not going to be hard to do. They haven't played many good ones. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they win that game tonight. But then to your point, Charlie, what you do is then you have to turn around and sustain it. Okay, if you win tonight, you've maybe made up for. The problem is the losses that you would have made up for are division losses, which count twice, basically. Right, yeah. So you've got to go out and hold serve. They put themselves in a serious hole here by not accumulating a single win within the division. That's a huge hole for them to come out of.
Can we talk about these wings now?
Yes.
I hate to keep doing this while we're talking football. I have yet to try the Lou's wings, so this is my first Lou's wings experience.
They're winners.
Bottoms up.
They're winners' wings.
I just feel like we always have to get the loose pie, right? That's what I always end up getting here at Lou Malnati's. And I feel guilty because here is this delicious wing, and I know that these are delicious, and I've had other people tell me that the Lou Malnati's wings are delicious. And this is my first time actually experiencing it. So here we go.
Succulent, is that the right word?
It's a sweet.
It is. It's like
a sweet finish. It's not.
but it's
good.
It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Tender.
Incredible.
Yeah, those have not been sitting out long.
You guys keep talking.
Excellent wings. Oh, I gotta fix my mic. Where is it?
Everything's good. Everything's good here.
I needed Jordan to get in my ear to tell
And
me
I
where
had
my mic
no
was.
idea. My wife and I walked, as I'm sure you guys have done a million times. I had no idea it was this close to the trail.
Yeah,
Here.
it's right here.
This is the. When did all this become a thing?
Well, you have
Because
some.
I've always lived downtown, and I'm kicking myself for not
Well,
earlier on when I
Broderpool-
got here, not living here right away.
So Broderpool, this area, Charlie, has been a nightlife and restaurant epicenter for, 60
long as
or
the
70
university
years. Correct.
was
Well,
a big deal.
no. So
No?
longer than so. Broderpool. Now you're going to get into a ridiculous trivia or history lesson here, but I'll make it brief. Broderpool for a long time was kind of its own little. It was not by jurisdiction its own town, but it essentially was a small village, and it had the Broderpool Avenue had a general store and a nickel and dime store and a hardware store,
Right.
all the way back to the 30s. By the 60s and 70s, it became a nightlife district. When I was in college, the Mass Ave of 1994, like when the Pacers and Knicks were playing, it was Broderpool Avenue. It was Rock Lobster. It was Mine Shaft. It was all that was where everybody in their mid-20s went. And this area has also always been just a bungalows of starter homes and people, younger people, like in their first home out of college. So it's always been that way. This particular area, to answer your question, where Lou Malnati's is, this structure was just put up, for this restaurant a year ago. There was a store around the corner. It was called Future Shock that sold like Doc Martens shoes 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But this area has been part of the nightlife scene in Indy for quite
It's
some
been
time.
the cultural center of Midtown for
Derek.
60 or 70
You're
years.
gonna confuse them.
So that's Charlie. That's really kind
Nobody
of
says Midtown.
where we
Charlie,
are.
just
We
so
are
you
in
know.
the beating heart of Midtown, Indianapolis.
No one except me, Jake, because I'm proud Midtown card carrying member
go.
as well.
We are both Team Midtown.
This place is really gaining on
I don't
Trumbull
wanna-
as well.
I don't want to step on the combined
Is
9
Trumbull
years.
worried about its lead that it had on Broderpool?
Yeah, Trumbull is
nightlife
also
district?
cultural, nightlife, all of that. When you think
Art.
of Trumbull, Connecticut.
Yeah,
big
the
time.
arts,
all of that.
everything.
We're going to talk more Colts with Charlie Clifford
get more
coming up
wings?
next. We're going to get
Can I
more
have another
wings,
wing?
more food. And don't forget, you see it on the bottom of your screen right there, right now, free Dell 22,
That's
free delivery from Lou Malnati's.
not Dell
That is the
Harris.
code. Free Dell
Free
22
laptops tonight on the show.
through October 30th.
with us
Any
through
central Indiana
Dell,
location.
that's another good Dell reference. Thank you.
West 86th Street, across from Broad Ripple High School, Carmel, Southside, or here at the Broad Ripple, the only dine-in location. Avon opening soon, but
Gotta
free
get the
Dell
wings.
for the free
Who
delivery.
thought you'd come to a pizza place for
if you
these
don't want to
wings?
dine in. They're
Well,
absolutely delicious.
unbelievable.
We're
Del
gonna dig into more
Harris's
of those
son,
next.
Del Curry's son, excuse me, will be joining us
Del
later.
Curry. Forgot about him.
Not
That's
Del
another
Harris.
Dell.
That's another Dell.
Is that
Yeah,
the
you're right.
coach, Del Harris?
Del
Yeah.
Harris, who's from Indiana.
He was in Naked Gun, right?
Leslie Nielsen, I think you're thinking of.
He had fantastic hair.
Yeah.
Del Harris.
He's in the
That
Hall
was
of Fame, I think,
Chet
right?
White. That was all.
Charlie knows a lot of your references, apparently, Jake.
well,
That's surprising. We'll
fairly
come back
hip.
with more next here. Lou Malnati's
Fairly.
Broad Ripple.
You
Corey
don't, get, you don't
Schultz,
get married on New Year's Eve without being
ISC
hip.
Sports Network.
It was fine. You know,
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds remaining.
Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it.
That's the finish.
Taking a layup to take it. And an and one. Shot at the buzzer. Good! She got it! Oh my goodness, what a shot! Hello! Did it again. Hello! Made the highlight reel again.
That goes to
Whoa,
Mentor and all
touchdown.
kinds of room to run. Down the middle of the field, and he will not be touched. Jackson, hello!
There we go.
Stokes throws it, caught, ball ricochets.
Wow.
A huge hit.
Wow. This has been an amazing display of goal scoring.
Has it, leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges.
Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County.
Unbelievable!
Touchdown.
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. So that was going to be a highlight reel.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Back at Lou Malnati's and Broad Ripple with Query and Schultz, even though Jake never takes the games anymore. I just have to do it myself. So it's really
Mine are
Schultz and
far
Query.
superior to yours, Derek. They're
Then why
much
don't you
more
take
smooth.
one every once in a
Okay,
while?
here,
Yeah.
I will. You ready? Hi, welcome back to Lou Malnati's at 6302 Ferguson Street here in Broadable. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. Sitting beside us is Charlie Clifford in the middle of us. Of course, you see him on Wish TV 8. He is not only the pride of Miami of Ohio University, but also of Chicago, which is why he is thrilled to be here at Lou Malnati's, which used to be known for its Chicago deep dish pizza, but now it's known as Central Indiana's deep dish pizza because not only available here to eat in Broadable, but available throughout Central Indiana in many pickup locations. Again, free Del 22. Use that code, and you're going to get free delivery here for the Lou Malnati's deep dish pizza. Valerie is here as well, right?
Where else can you get deep dish around here?
And a nice hug.
And a great
apparently.
hug.
Yeah. Free hugs over here.
Nowhere like this.
I was gonna
tomatoes
say.
are as big as this right here.
They are.
Lou
Right?
Malnati's established 1971. Jake Query established 1972.
That's correct.
So it's a nice tie-in for all this. But you're a Chicago guy, right? So this is
it.
This runs through your veins.
This is
these
it.
Lou Malnati's tomatoes.
You know, everybody joked. My dad was a Bronx guy originally. He came out. He met my mom. It's like, what's this lasagna they gave us? We got pizza coming in. You know, and I think for a lot of Hoosiers, maybe if you haven't dabbled before, but I don't know. To me, it's just you said the tomatoes. You just get so much more sauce.
like right here.
That's really
It's the sauce. I
that
think, too.
is the difference maker.
Right.
And the bread is great. You know, you got to get to the crust. There's no quitting before the crust. And
No quitting before the crust,
no.
Derek.
You really have to commit.
You do.
when
you
it comes
do,
to
though.
this. But it's
Oh,
worth.
I'm going
the
to have half a
commitment.
pizza. You do 2 of these slices. A lot of people are like, oh, man.
Something else I wanted to highlight as well, and I know Jake, you got this for our buddy lunch.
Oh.
Their salads are excellent too.
No question.
You can come in here and get the lunch special where you get a salad, basically this side, and they have the gorgonzola dressing that I personally like for my salad, and a personal deep dish pie as well for a great price at any of the Lou's locations. But dine in here in Broad Ripple.
Charlie, do you say pizza or pie?
A pizza,
Yeah.
for sure.
And then we've got the bruschetta over there, it looks like, right? Which
Yeah,
we haven't
they're-
tried yet, which looks
They've
immaculate and
overloaded the-
amazing. And Alan has zoomed in
It's all doing.
on all those fresh
There we
tomatoes.
go.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Also one of my favorites.
This game
Thank you.
tonight, by the way, Colts and Broncos, the reason that we're here, game kicks off shortly after 8 o'clock out in Denver. One of the things that we haven't talked about, and I thought it was interesting, we talked about this morning, Frank Reich downplaying the altitude and how that could be a factor. And I think that's a dangerous thing to overlook. I get what he's saying in the fact of, look, it's not the end-all, be-all. But if the game is close late in the fourth, I'm telling you, if you've ever been to Denver, and I don't know exactly when the Colts got out there, but it takes about 2 days to acclimate. And Charlie, the reality is this. You're not all of a sudden just going to collapse and not be able to get up and walk because of the altitude. But I do think that the stamina that is necessary to play at the end of a game, that it is more likely that the Colts, it would affect them than obviously Denver because they're used to it.
No question. I mean, what is Reich going to really say, though? Oh, gosh, we need to fly out on Monday and spend the whole
He's
week
going to
there.
downplay it, right?
You know, I just don't think you can, with where he's at specifically, knowing all the noise around this team, you know, I thought it was almost interesting. He said something earlier in the week, oh, well, you know, we did lose Jack Doyle, the best blocking tight end in the NFL. I was kind of looking around saying, is this the week to really bring that up? Like, I don't know what the context of the question was. I don't know if he was asked directly about, hey, no one's really asked about missing Captain Jack, and he just said, yeah, you're right. He was awesome. So I don't mean to take it there, but I just think given the circumstances, but totally, it's a total story.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered, John Elway to me is arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, as more and more time has gone on, I look back on Elway's career, and he was remarkable. But I've also always wondered, we'll never know the answer to this, but when Elway retired, he had at that time the record for the most fourth-quarter comeback wins in NFL history. And I've always wondered how much of that is because of the
The
fact
other team's just
that
gassed.
teams, I'm telling you, man,
Yeah.
it is because you need realistically. I remember in 1989, Indiana with Jay Edwards, who's one of the great players of all time in IU history, as you know, Derek. But in 1989, Indiana they had a great year. They won the Big Ten.
Midtown Jay Edwards.
They
It all cancels out.
That's right. They went out to Denver, and they, in the Sweet 16, got absolutely run off the floor by Seton Hall. Part of that is because Jay Edwards was apparently hungover, but a lot of that too, I think, is that Indiana went out the day before, and Seton Hall, as soon as Seton Hall went out a week before, and they were in Denver for a week, and they cruised through the regionals, and I've always felt like that was a factor. I'm telling you, if you go out there, have you been to Denver?
You know, just in and out at the airport, never.
Yeah, I mean,
out
when
and about.
it takes like a half. The one thing that happened to me one time, I flew into Denver and I was going to Colorado Springs, and I landed and was driving in my car, and I have my phone plugged in, so I'm listening to my music, and I'll never forget, like, a rap song came on that I've known for 30 years, and I was trying to sing along to it, and I was like misplacing the words.
Brain fog or something?
Yes.
Weird.
And so
Jake, that was actually the horns of the other cars as they heard you with your window
That's right.
down, trying to cancel out.
it was late. I will say that much. But
guy from the Hoosier
I
State.
got to a gas station and I happened to mention, I'm like, yeah, this is weird. And the guy goes, well, did you just fly in here? And I said, and he goes, yeah, man, you're not acclimated. Like, that's absolutely the oxygen.
Yeah.
It's totally bizarre.
Weird.
And you would think with how this regime, for instance, this summer, changing the practice schedule. Hey, we're not going to go until noon because we think it's going to have a competitive advantage. If there was anyone in that building up top who said, we need to get to Denver by Wednesday, they would have gone out there.
No
right?
question. No
I
question.
mean,
Although it is on that short week, I don't know that it makes much of a difference,
that's
right?
a good point. That's
I mean,
a good
that's the
point.
problem.
I mean, that's coming to play in Jacksonville, right? Oh, what's this hex in Jacksonville? To me, granted, this year it didn't count because the weather was great. A lot of it, you get down there like, oh, it's so thick.
Yeah, no,
like,
you're
this
right.
is
That's a good point.
brutal.
That's a good point.
Like, I feel like I just, you can't
need
get
3
comfortable
showers,
down
right?
there.
Yeah.
And I think that's been part of the, why can't you block? Why can't you win in the trenches in Jacksonville? I think that goes into it a lot.
So do they turn this around or not with where we sit today, in your opinion?
Well, I've been wrong. I'm going to be truthful here on the Query and Schultz show. I've been wrong about every game this year. And I hope there's somebody else out there that says, you know what, me too. Because I picked them to lose to Kansas City. I picked them to win every other week. So for that, I feel like my gut says they're going to lose, so that means they're going to win.
I said they would beat Kansas City.
And I saw that score. Props to you for that.
And I think they'll win tonight. But
but
they are enigmatic, man. There's no doubt about it.
11-1, this team when Jonathan Taylor goes for 100+, 1-9 when he doesn't break 100, when he's not even on the field. I think it was the one COVID game against the Titans when they got run out of the building. I don't see this thing being fixed
them, though, Charlie,
in 4 days.
Does not having
Granted,
Jonathan
Denver's
Taylor,
offense is terrible.
But
I talked to 3 people in Denver this week. One of them, father previously was high up in the organization. This offense is bad.
Does Indianapolis's offense, crazy as this sounds, do they benefit from no Jonathan Taylor because it forces them to diversify their weapons and get other people involved and, for example, get Nyheim Hines in space, which they have neglected to do so far?
I don't know about you. I'm kind of over the whole Hines. It feels like we were sold this thing.
I thought this. I wondered. I said earlier.
If you're
was
banking
that a
on
smoke
wait
screen?
till Hines starts rolling, you're just it's come and gone.
Was
He's
that a
been on
smoke
the
screen?
team, and I love the guy, and I think he's a fantastic playmaker in certain situations. But I don't know if it was a smoke screen. Irsay told us this summer, a couple of years ago, I was in their ear saying I would love to see Hines in the slot, but I pay them a lot of money. I let them do their jobs. Now it looks like we're going to be doing that. To me, I don't just put him in the slot and keep him there, which is kind of what they've done. I if you're banking on Hines to save this team, it's
I mean,
just
yeah,
not,
I can't
not a thing.
disagree with that. I just, at some point, we got to start seeing it, right? I mean, for what they're paying him, and for his, I mean, Frank Reich at the beginning of the year, when Frank Reich's like, if you got him on your fantasy team, you're going to love him. I mean, are you kidding me?
But how much of that is Hines and how much of that is his usage?
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Like
they
counts.
that's what I'm talking about. They haven't used him at all.
Harris Campbell is playing 2 to 3 times the snaps that Nyheim Hines is.
Right.
So I think you need to start
now
there with who's actually on the field for 80 to 85% of the game.
Paris Campbell, though, to his credit, he made a huge play. Was it against Tennessee? Was it Tennessee or Jacksonville?
It was last week.
No, he made a big play in the fourth quarter. He got an offensive pass interference. So that was the first time we used it. We heard his name.
Okay, I see where we're going.
It might have been the Jacksonville game, right? It was
9
impressive.
catches, 90 yards in 4 games for Paris this year. So
9 for 90?
Yeah.
Now, Derek, you know what that tells
breakout
me?
has not yet
That means
come
he's
for
on pace for 36 for 360. No, wait a minute.
Really?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 36 for 360.
Well, remember, there were 17 games this year.
Okay.
Now,
Well,
bonus
then
game.
16.
Bonus game, 200 yards. Finale.
That's right. There you go.
200 in the
that'll bump him
finale.
up to almost 600.
Meaningless
receiving
finale game.
At CliffWish8 on
Thanks,
Twitter.
guys.
Wish is great. Pre-game,
Hey.
post-game, get it over to Wish
Quickly,
right away.
If I can.
and every Monday night game on Wish.
Look, you two, the magic that you had together and you still have on this show, it means the world that, to anybody in Central Indiana, you both proven since then you can work with anybody and make anyone really good. Kevin Bowen would tell you right now, I'm better because I'm working with you. Saw Corey Elliott without you on last week. He's comfortable. He sits in for a show, and it looks like you guys have been working together for 3 months. Truly it's a gift that Indy has you two here, and it's been cool to, as I said, when I got here, I used to Mondays and Tuesdays do my laundry, drive around when the show was on because I didn't feel
We're
like
great
such
laundry background.
Yeah, that's right.
do whatever chores, but it made me feel like not such an outsider, and I appreciate that.
Charlie,
And
you
I'll never
realize, and I
forget that.
appreciate that, you realize
Yeah.
for the two of us, Derek and I have one thing in common, which is a real blessing, and that is anybody else that either one of us works with is an upgrade. And so therefore, naturally, that you know what I mean?
Well, Charlie,
Yeah,
you mentioned that gift, and it's just important to me because I don't want to be arrogant about it, but clearly I have a gift, and I want to share it with everyone. So that's what I try to do
Yeah, okay.
on the show
Right.
every single day.
Haven't shared the wings, have
Can
you?
I do the double pizza
Yeah,
to the
let's do
face
it.
here with
That's right.
pies? No, awesome,
Appreciate
guys.
it, my man. Thanks for coming
See you
by.
soon.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
we got
for
more
sure.
to come next. A special guest for Jake
Really?
coming up to end the show here from Lou Malnati.
Why are it so
I may have
Valerie.
to stay now.
I think he's hiding
I'm
behind
gonna
the
stay
bar
now.
counter right now.
Okay.
It's Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Don't miss the last segment.
Fall means football. And on the ISC, we've got you covered all season long. Catch our broadcast live on television on MyNDTV 23 and Comcast 81, as well as streaming on ISCSportsNetwork.com. With a subscription to ISC for only $4.99 a month, you get access to our entire library, viewable anytime, anywhere, on our website or on the ISC app. Don't miss a single broadcast. ISC Sports Network. Football lives here. The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC. Local lives here.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz here on the ISC Sports Network. My name is Dick Query. Derek Schultz is right there. Lou Malnati, absolutely perfect evening. A perfect evening. Well, it was. And now all of a sudden, in fact,
So we have found this Broad Ripple drifter here
You found a broad ripple
who has come up. You have to talk into the
Caleb's
microphone.
got some Ray-Bans stepping
So-
up in the world.
Believe it, and their prescription, so I can see it.
We have a lot of core listeners of the old radio program, and many of whom that were here. I mean, Valerie is over there.
That was incredible.
Right
I
now,
haven't seen Ballard in a long time.
and Amy as well, but also Josh and Liz
By the way,
were
Amy
here.
wants to go see Bruce Springsteen. When is that, Amy? I'd like to go to Bruce Springsteen with Amy. Apparently, Valerie doesn't want to go.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big concert people.
Yeah, I know.
And you've become
I
a
see them
concert
at
person.
concerts a lot.
But also, Matt Lakin and his mom Kim were here. We've got Indy Bill over here, who's kind of a new age listener and viewer of the show.
Pride of Iowa.
Caleb, former intern of
The
ours,
enthusiastic intern.
first-time listener, and then actual employee of the radio station, and now best friend of ours.
Caleb, you're not old enough to be drinking that beer, but we won't say anything.
I've been 19
He
years
is
I
now.
for
told-
about like
Caleb's
7
like
years.
25 now, Jake.
26 when he's counting.
I
Are you really?
told Derek this. Derek, what did I tell you? You had to drive me back from somewhere. I don't remember where or why, or what bet I lost. But we were talking about my birthday, and what did I tell you about Caleb? I've not told Caleb this.
That Caleb called into the radio show.
That is
with
correct.
You and Kevin do in the mornings, Kevin and Query, and made you emotional.
Correct.
By the voicemail. Or wait, no, you called in. That was a
That was
live
live,
call, right?
yeah.
That was a live
That was
call.
live.
Made you emotional, which I've been with you for thousands of calls and hundreds of shows, and I don't ever remember. I've seen you get angry with callers. I don't ever remember you ever getting like
That was,
emotional like that.
Caleb, that I don't know if you could tell on the radio, but Caleb was the only one of the people that called in, and I appreciated people that called in to wish me a happy 50th birthday. Caleb was the one that broke me, and I had to basically catch myself as to not break down on the radio. So I appreciate your phone call, and I can't believe that you're drinking a beer.
Because he's
That
been
is-
old enough for
Cheers.
5 years
Cheers.
to
Yeah.
do this.
Caleb tried to come to KSR for a remote when he was 16. You remember
I do
that?
remember that.
Of course I remember
Yes.
that. Yeah.
They're like, I don't think you're old enough to be in here. And I remember Caleb, I remember exactly what you said. You're like, listen, I parked my Huffy in the front row, and I will gladly get on it and leave if I have to. And they're like, well, you have to be 21.
This is
voice
an hour and
was
a half long
cracking and
bike ride, right?
That's right.
But this is a good, Caleb's got the beer because they have a full-service bar that's also
great.
here at Lou Malnati's, the dining location in Broad Ripple. And we're really excited to be back on the road again and do a remote and have you back as part of
Caleb,
it
have
as
some
well.
za, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
Have some
absolutely.
pizza.
Thank
Do
you,
a nice
everybody.
pizza
Thank you.
toast here.
I brought my dad along as well. He's in the middle of training for the Boston Marathon, so I
I was
appreciate
going to
that
say,
he's
your
Oh,
dad,
awesome.
who looks even
Yeah.
younger than last time I saw
Your
him.
dad's in way better shape than Jake is.
Yeah. Well, Tablet runs 60 miles a week.
We've got more pizza, and, geez, they've just spoiled us with their riches
Wow.
here at Lou's.
That's really good.
We have the wings.
It
We
is
have
good.
the bruschetta, which is delicious. The
Caleb went right
salads.
for it.
Everything here
have
at Lou Malnati's is incredible. So not only the Broad Ripple location, but obviously soon-to-be four other Indy area locations with the Avon store
It
opening before the end of the
literally
year.
is the most perfect evening outside.
Yes.
I mean, this literally is. Denver is like this. Phoenix, Arizona is like this. I was outside once at Phoenix for a spring test for IndyCar, and we were out at the racetrack, and there was no humidity. And in Arizona, there are no bugs. And I had to remind myself that I was outside because it was like room temperature, no humidity. It was perfect. That's exactly what it feels like out here. I mean, this is unbelievable. This might be. This
Perfect
is like,
patio weather.
what's that?
It's like the gods knew that we were coming to the Lou
Totally.
Malnati's patio
Totally.
for tonight for Colts and Broncos Thursday Night Football. Right here is the Malnati Chicago Classic. This is what I get every
That's
time.
their staple.
This is the staple. I always say that I'm going to try one of the wings or something else. I always end up getting this because this is the core of what they do here at Malnati's. It's absolutely delicious, the deep dish pie. The wings are excellent, though. I'm glad that I finally
Totally.
got to try those for the first time. And next time you and I have a buddy lunch date, we'll have to do the wings. I was thinking every Friday, except for IndyCar season. We won't do it during IndyCar season because that'll be a little too hectic on your
No,
schedule.
you know what we should do? Why don't you schedule them for IndyCar season each Friday?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Works
You're
out
not here.
perfectly.
I know exactly what your schedule is.
That works. I'm sure you do.
People still ask me when you're available for things, and I'm like, buddy, that is not my responsibility anymore. Let's get score predictions. We only got a couple minutes left before we have to exit stage left, and the Colts kicking off about a half an hour from now. So does the turnaround happen? Does it start tonight?
It has to happen tonight, Derek. They've got to get it going. For the sake of Greg Rakestraw, who you're going to hear on the postgame show on The Fan and the phone calls he has to take, I hope so. Listen, I keep saying it, and I don't want to be a broken record by it, but this to me is the ultimate test. If they don't show up tonight on the road on prime time after having gone now, a tie and 2 losses within the division, even though it's an out-of-division game. But it is a big game because when you consider the AFC West, Denver's a team that they could very likely be vying with for like a wild card spot if they're not to win their division. So it's a huge game for Indianapolis. If they don't show up tonight, if they look flat, then that tells me that Frank Reich has lost them. And I don't want that to be the case because I like Frank Reich and I think the players like him as a guy. But I do think there's just something about these moments. There's something about these games where the Colts typically surprise you and you go, whoa, okay. And I think tonight that's exactly what happens, and I think the Colts win it 26-24.
What about you, Caleb?
I am looking forward to Russell Wilson getting his 3rd ever loss on Thursday Night Football, and the Colts win by about 4 points. I'm calling 21-17 Indianapolis.
I'll be Debbie Downer here. The Colts have
That's
not.
a shock.
The Colts have not given me any reason to give them benefit of the doubt whatsoever that they're going to go and win tonight. None. It's the worst offense in the league. It's the worst offensive line in the league. The defense has come and gone, and I think a lot of what happened in the Kansas City game you can kind of chalk up to a fluke more than something like real and tangible. I would love to be wrong. It just feels different this year. I was really confident that they were going to turn it around in 18, and they did. I was confident they were going to turn it around last year, and they did. I'm not confident they're going to turn around this year. And I think they fall deeper into a hole. I think Denver, as banged up as they are,
that's a big hole to climb out of.
I think Denver's issues to me are more fixable than what the Colts' issues are. Denver's been closer through 4 games than the Colts have been.
Do you think it's weird John Denver's not from Colorado?
So I'll take Denver low scoring again. 22.
He's from West Virginia.
I'm going to do something weird.
Right?
22-19.
Can we go back to Lazy Town talk that was happening this morning? Is that going to come back? Yeah, we want to do that again. Yeah,
Did you watch that as a kid?
Of course, I absolutely watched it.
Now you're drinking beer. What do you know?
Yeah, I know, and I've thought about it.
Flies.
Oh, New Mexico.
John Denver's from New Mexico. I thought he's from West Virginia. Did he live in West Virginia at some point? Almost Heaven, West Virginia.
Well, he sang the song.
Blue Ridge Mountains. Shenandoah River.
He was from there.
Okay.
Did you realize that Lazy Town, when I was really young, had a song that got really, really popular? And I'm surprised in your research.
With it, Derek? Lazy Town?
Yeah, Lazy Town. You heard about this?
The villain looks like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
It's from Iceland.
Yeah. It's a great show, actually. It was really good. Helped, a generation of my youth get all up and at it. But their most famous song that I still remember this day, and I'm so surprised that in your research, it was not the thing that stuck in your head.
We played it, I think.
Did you?
I don't know. It's from Iceland.
Well, it's the Americanized version is We Are the Pirates.
Really?
All right.
Yes.
We got to wrap up the show because we're giving Caleb too much airtime.
Do you know the Pirates' favorite letter of the alphabet?
No, I'm not going to do this.
Do you know what it is?
National Pirate
C!
Day has gone.
No, it's R. You can see you can go.
Love all the pizza here at Lou Malnati's, the wings, the bruschetta, the appetizers, the salads.
Fabulous.
Thanks to the entire crew. They've been
This
super hospitable.
is an awesome place to come out, watch games, enjoy a beer, and it's a super cozy looking atmosphere for the inside for the wintertime as well. So absolutely come out to Lou Malnati's on Ferguson, 6302 Ferguson here in Broader.
Order.loumalnatis.com. Dine in and take out and everything available. Delivery as well at the Broad Ripple location. The other 3 locations, 86th Street, Carmel, and Avon, all carry out and delivery, and then coming soon to Avon by the end of the year. So thanks
Caleb,
to
you're going to drop that.
the
No, I'm not.
Jennifers.
Oh, maybe I
Thanks
am.
to everybody at Lou's for making this possible for us. Thanks to our crew as well. Alan Hughes. We've got Vince in the truck. We've got Jordan in the truck as well. We're back Monday to recap, hopefully, a Colts win.
We'll recap the game either way.
Of Query and Schultz here on the
Call
IFC
in Greg
Sports Network.
Rakestraw 2:30 in the morning this morning,
We'll
everybody.
see you next time. Bye.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds left. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. Oh! That's the finish. You get a layup taken. And an and